Welcome to Worthy Ones, the video series where I take all the newest #1 comic books that I read for the current comic book week and deem them worthy or not worthy. I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you guys love daily comic book content, if you love me helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy, guys, I think you came to the right place. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And just so you guys know, there could be spoilers in this video, so if you have not read your books, please read your books and then come back unless you don't mind being spoiled at times. We definitely have some big boy books this week, but before we get to them, we gotta talk about some of the others that may not be so highly anticipated. And this first one, it goes to Hexacon Bridge, issue 1. This is done by Richard Blake. Now, again, it's a new #1. Sometimes I give these oddball stories a try to see if they're gonna be any good, because sometimes they surprise you, right? And with Hexacon Bridge, it did sound like an interesting concept at first, where you have these two expeditionists that go into this parallel dimension or whatnot, and at first they sent drones and things like that through this dimension, and then all of a sudden they wound up getting lost, and you kind of get to see that happen in this comic book. The artwork is very, different, unique, but there wasn't a lot of story to be told. But obviously I think that was on purpose, because there was a younger child there that sees the vision of the mom and the dad that actually have gone missing. So you see all like these hexagons and all these weird shapes of, places and things and stuff like that. And again, it was just basically a vision, and it is promised that the parents will be found to this kid. This was nothing here that really interests me, so I'm going to deem this one unworthy. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this book. None of the characters seemed interesting. The little boy didn't seem interesting. The scientist didn't seem interesting. And even the main plot didn't seem interesting. So obviously, why would I continue this? There just wasn't enough here. So I'm going to grade this one a D. It was just not interesting. What If Dark Carnage issue 1. Now, they've been coming out with these What If books and putting #1s on them, but really this is like the 6th or 7th one that has come out, and this one has to deal with Carnage. Now, I am showing the image here of the homage to the first full appearance of Carnage. I got that cover as well because I just thought it looked cool, because if the story wasn't any good, at least I got a pretty cool homage cover, right? So if you check out the interior artwork in this book, it's really exaggerated art. They make Carnage look very creepy. A lot of characters look real slender and gangly looking. Crazy facial expressions, very dark, very gritty. So the artwork wasn't horrible, but it wasn't also my favorite, okay? Now, this story was quite weird because we wound up seeing Cletus in Ravencroft, and then what happens is he starts escaping from the facility, and we see all the guards going after him, and then the ground starts collapsing because they want to get the Sonics, the symbiote off of him, so they use these sonic grenades, and it creates this earthquake in Ravencroft, and Carnage comes stumbling down. You get to see again that whole ground crumbling, and he falls to these caverns, and he comes across this crazy weird tree, and it's just he kind of comes across the ancestor of his long lost ancestors in here, and they had this plan, this deal with Dormammu to conquer the world and create these armies and these troops and everything else. This book was just way out there, and I felt like it was repeating over and over again, because every time something exploded, it would be Carnage going down to a lower and lower level. It just felt repetitive. There was nothing here that was very interesting either, but it wasn't the Gwen Stacy one. It wasn't some of the other ones that I read. This story was just there, and it didn't even feel really a what if story, right? It was just what if there was an ancestor of Cletus Cassidy and he wanted to take over the world. It was just, I don't know, it was kind of out there, not worthy for me. As expensive as the books are getting, I don't think this one was worth the $5. So yeah, I would take a pass on this, try something else instead. And if I graded this one was also a D. I didn't like this book at all. Green Lantern War Journal issue 1. Now, I read those stories in the back of the main Green Lantern book, and I really didn't like them, but I decided to pick this book up, 1, because it's Green Lantern, right? And 2, I was like, well, maybe if I get a full issue of whatever it is that's going on, I'll understand it a little bit more. So this book is written by Philip Kennedy Johnson. The artwork is pretty good. It's pretty dark. And the way this book opens up is this astronaut that gets thrown out into space, and she's got to recover, right? And she's got to turn like this oxygen valve off or whatever it is before everyone burns up in space, because the space station is blowing up, and they're like screaming for her, and they're like, help us. And she sees this crazy ass ring, and she gets attracted to it. It's very dark, right? And she becomes this like crazy creature. And all the other people on the space station wound up dying, burning up. The space station blows up. So the book does a great job at like really capturing the reader's attention from the start. So I was like, oh, this might be actually pretty good now, right? And then it goes back to John Stewart, where he's back on Earth, and it looks like he's taking care of his mom, I think it is, and she is sick or whatever it is. And then we get this random lantern who thinks like John Stewart has a ring, and he doesn't. Now, I didn't read the last like volume of John Stewart, so I'm not really sure what's going on there, but he can still produce constructs and stuff. And he's like battling that guy, and then, you know, that's taken care of. Then we go back to this whole space station thing, and it looks like Guy Gardner's examining what's going on with this space station, and we see that creature come around, like what the creature is right now after it became this, after the human became this thing. And yeah, you get to see it attack Guy Gardner, and that's basically about it. You know, this book is worthy, and I mean that in a very, very like on the fence type of way. I think it was enough to see where issue 2 is going to go, right? But it wasn't like the whole story was exciting. Like, all I cared about was like that astronaut becoming that creature, like the new, like it's got a new power ring, and like what's its purpose, right? Like, I could care less about John Stewart in the book. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So maybe I'll try issue 2 here. And if I rate this book, I'm going to give it a C+. I was entertained for the most part, and I guess we'll see where it goes from here. Let's get to the big boy book, shall we? Uncanny Spider-Man, issue 1. Now, a lot of us out there, I think, were anticipating this comic book where we got Nightcrawler posing as a Spider-Man character, and we're probably wondering, well, why is he doing this, right? So this book is written by Cy Spurrier. The artwork is very welcoming here. I love the bright and vibrant colors. I love how this is kind of like a mashup of Spider-Man and Nightcrawler, and, you know, you get to see the best of the best here, right? You get to see Spider-Man in like a spider suit, and then you get to see Nightcrawler doing all his stuff. And you gotta love the personality of Nightcrawler in here. He's very nice, he's cute, he's playful, and he is suffering because he feels like he's done things that were out of his control, and that obviously makes him a wanted mutant here, and we get to see Orchis in pursuit of him. The funny thing is one of the major villains in this book is Vulture, and he gets some upgraded tech to make him this crazy, like, I don't know, like robotic vulture thing, and he's known as Director Vulture, and he looks like this, right? So it's really awesome. The cool thing about this book, though, really was all the character interaction. Nightcrawler interact with Spider-Man, and they were very much in character here. We wound up seeing Nightcrawler try to save people in the community, something that he would do. He's borrowing one of Peter's costumes, obviously. He's saving this nice looking woman in the park, and she kind of comes on to him a little bit, and it's kind of funny how like his tail responds to the whole situation. It's really good, man. Overall, I had a blast with this comic book. And in the beginning, it's kind of cool because he's pursued by Sentinel, and he's able to elude their technology to not have them recognize that he is a mutant. So he's kind of hiding in plain sight, not looking like himself, dressing like Spider-Man. And so the whole thing is why Vulture can't find him using those Sentinels. He winds up hiring Silver Sable to go looking for him and to capture him. That is the main mission here, and then that's how this book continues. So I'm going to deem this book worthy. Yes, absolutely a fun time. Great artwork. All the characters seem in character for me, and it's definitely an A book. So I definitely say go out and pick this one up. Captain America Issue 1, another big book being released this week. This one is a $6 comic book, so in order to capture my attention and continue reading it, it's got to be a pretty good story. This book is like something like 44 pages or whatnot. J. Michael Straczynski, actually writes this book, and the artist of the last Punisher run does the artwork in here, and I do like the art. It's done by Jesus Sayas, if I say his name correctly. Artwork looks pretty good. I love the way he draws Steve Rogers. He does make him very typical white American, super strong. Like, I kind of like that. This book really emphasizes the beginning of stories, how some stories can start this way and this story can start that way. So in this book, it kind of is similar to Punisher in a way because it's telling two different stories. It's telling a story about Steve Rogers now in the present day, and then it's telling a story of Steve Rogers when he was a little boy, when he was like 14 years old, and when his mom died, and him trying to survive on his own. Okay, now there is a lot of dialogue in this book, and you got to be prepared to read it because this book offers no action the entire time. There is maybe one page where Sue Storm comes into the picture here and she asks Steve, hey, you want to do a mission with us real quick? And you wind up getting to see a page right here, okay? And that was the only action here. But what this book does is it shows you the character of Steve, not Captain America really. It shows you how much of a wholesome character is, how he's for his community because the apartment building that he's living in is being sold or it's being shut down, and all these people are being misplaced. So what happens is he kind of borrows a loan against his own pay from the Avengers pay, and he owns this building. So he's putting together the building once again, and he's hiring people that are homeless, and he's doing all this type of stuff. He's just being a good guy, right? And I don't have a problem with that per se, but there was just too much of it, right? Like, you could have told this story in like 28 pages, and instead it was dragged out for 44 pages. And then you wind up getting to see the story of a young Steve trying to survive on his own after his mom died. So he's working all these different jobs so he can get an apartment for himself. And you focused on that. So I was like, okay, I'm like, all right. By the time I got to the like last 10 pages, I was kind of like over it a little bit. And then we got introduced to a villain that looks like that's going to be appearing in the book in the future. And then the way the book left on a cliffhanger is we wound up seeing like the Nazis and the Americans kind of teaming up with each other. So where is that whole story going? So I'm going to deem this book worthy. I don't think as a #1 issue it would capture a lot of people from the start, but you can tell that Straczynski here is trying to tell a long story. So I am curious. If it doesn't grab me, though, by a story arc or two, I might actually drop it. But it seems like he has an MO here to tell somewhat of a solid story, and he is a good writer. Hopefully, he can balance the two stories out well. So if I had to grade this one, I'm going to give this one a B-. I would have loved a little bit more Captain America action, and I would have loved maybe even a smaller book. That's a problem with these longer issue ones. Like, they tell sometimes a dragged out story, which is not always needed. Here we go, Predator vs. Wolverine. So I said this last week. I was like, holy shit, I'm like $8 for this comic book. And I wound up getting 2 covers because that's what I put on my FOC. So I honor that whenever I pre-order stuff from the shop. I'm definitely going to pick it up. I don't want the stuff sitting on the shelves and say, sorry guys, you know, I didn't realize that it was $8. I should check the prices of these books before I put them on my FOC. But nevertheless, cool covers, and the comic book itself was drawn by Greg Land, and there's some times where the artwork really shines, especially in the beginning of this book, and then there's other times where this book kind of lacked. There's this one page of a Predator as the issue goes along where he just looked very off. I'm gonna take a second and find him here, like this one right here. Like, look at how big his headpiece is and then how lengthy his body is. It just didn't work. So the artwork at times was really good, and other times it was very inconsistent. So this book again is the $8, and was it worth that price tag? Number one, I'm gonna say no. There's no 44-page comic book that is worth $8 in my opinion, unless for me it's Spider-Man, like my favorite character. Like I read the character no matter what. But when it came to this book, it's a book that starts off where Wolverine is definitely on the run from this Predator, and this Predator and this and Wolverine have this history with each other, and it's going back all the way to the 1900s, okay, when Wolverine was very young and he comes across this Predator and they start doing battle against each other. You wind up seeing him chase Wolverine in the snow, and Wolverine eludes him, thinking that, okay, this is the end of it. Wolverine comes across this guy and he's like, oh, you gotta help me find my son. This guy just uses Wolverine as a means to get money that was owed to him. And the guy winds up getting killed by a Predator. So you wind up seeing that story happen. Then you wind up seeing a more present story where it's like during like Weapon X times and whatnot, where you see Sabretooth and Wolverine and Maverick, they're working together, and the Predator winds up showing up there. And that's pretty much about it, guys. I mean, and it's going to continue from that Weapon X program. That's it. There wasn't anything here that was just mind-blowing, where it was like, oh my god, I gotta pick up the next issue. And to let you know, the next issue is going to be $6, and it's a 28-page comic. So this book is not worthy of the $8. Couple cool variant covers. Check out the first issue if you want, or if you want to put those variants in your collection, if you feel that that's worth it. But story-wise, there's no real depth here. Not worth that money. So I'm going to give this one a C-. It was an average read. It was entertaining, but it wasn't anything spectacular. Grab your reading glasses, get some coffee, and dive into Wonder Woman issue 1. Holy cow, this book was like a freaking book that was like an event to read. It took forever for me to read this book. This book is full of dialogue, but this is a highly anticipated comic written by Tom King. Whether you liked it or not, I think a lot of people did read this particular comic book. The artwork in this book is absolutely gorgeous. I loved like the action scenes, the fighting scenes, the facial expressions in here were really good. It's just a pretty book to look at. I had an enjoyment factor when it came to this Sergeant Steel character. Okay, so it was a cool book to look look at, but unfortunately, there was so much dialogue in here. It was just like, man, I gotta take a breather after I read this page, right? So, when it comes to Wonder Woman, it's like Captain America almost for me. There's not a lot of them that I've read in the past. I feel like there hasn't been a great series in a long time that has to do with the character. The last Wonder Woman series that I was fully on board was, I would say, Meredith Finch's run back in like the New 52 days, Rucka's run as well, but that was about it. So if you read the preview pages when it comes to Wonder Woman, we wound up finding out that there was this Amazonian who was attacked as she was being assaulted, or she felt threatened. So what she did was she wound up killing a whole bunch of guys in this pool hole and left the other women alive. So what happens is we go into this huge, I want to say, thing where all the Amazons are banned from US soil because this one Amazon killed like 10 people. So for some reason, we feel that all of the Amazons are bad, which I don't agree with per se, because you have a murderer, you have a serial killer out there, right, that goes and kills a bunch of people. Does that make all people bad? No, I just feel like that's almost discriminatory against the Amazons, right? Now, it's just kind of weird to me. And so any Amazons that are in the US soil, they're forced to go back to Themyscira. And Sergeant Steele, this dude with this robotic hand, is the one that's in charge and leading all this thing, and it's called Axe, right? And so we wind up getting to see a lot of political stuff going on in this book. We wind up seeing Amazon that is, I guess, being attacked because she lives there, protecting her adopted daughter, and then we wind up seeing your significant other go after him and they kill her, and nowhere does Wonder Woman make her appearance here until, I want to say it's like a month later in real time, which I find quite interesting. But she has enough of it at this point, and she goes after Steel, and she says, this is my home, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to defend everything that's going on. And then after that, we wind up getting introduced to the next villain that's in this book, and this is known as the Sovereign, who has been around forever and ever and ever, and he has the lasso of lies, and he's this old fart that wears this like crown, and it's just insane, dude. I don't know what to expect from this guy. Like, is he supposed to be powerful? He represents America and everything. I don't know. It's just weird. However, I'm going to deem this book worthy. I just want to see where it goes, right? Wonder Woman is wanted now because of what she did to all the soldiers that were forcing her to go back. But I don't think people are going to like this, because if it's a Wonder Woman story that maybe you never read the character before, you might be on board with it. I feel like there is a solid, I wouldn't say a solid story, there is a story here to be told, right? And it's a better story than probably what we've been getting in the past. But I don't know if people are going to like this if you're a Wonder Woman fan, because I feel like this doesn't really have anything to do with the character itself per se. I don't know, right? All I know is that it was a pretty book to look at. There was a lot to read. You almost had to take an intermission break because it was so long. And I don't know, man. We'll see where it goes. I think as a grade, I'm going to give this one probably a B-, right? I enjoyed it. But again, I'm a different fan base here. I'm not a hardcore Wonder Woman fan. If you're a hardcore Wonder Woman fan, I think you might give it a lesser grade. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this one, and if you're going to continue it going forward. So lots of highly anticipated books this week, guys. So I want to hear in the comments below if you deem them worthy or not worthy. Love hearing all your comments and your thoughts. Much appreciated on the support of the channel. You guys are great. And if you love my content, I'll leave you more content right here. This is everything that I bought for New Comic Book Day. And as always, guys, support those local comic shops. Keep buying, keep collecting, but more importantly, always read your comics. Guys, I'll see you real soon. Bye.